school leavers can equip themselves with new short course skills and learnerships in the fourth industrial revolution fields that will set them up for long-term careers. At the end of each year, as the South African education system churns out hundreds and thousands of school leavers with an uncertain future and ever-decreasing prospects of finding meaningful careers in a country facing tough economic times, Matrics are faced with bleak prospects of finding employment in 2023. Let's take a look at how Matrics entering the job market in 2023 can equip themselves with scarce skills occupations. We are now joined by Sabelo Myeni, who's the CEO of Sisekelo Institute of Business and Technology. Sabelo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's really great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Katleo, for having me, and good evening to your viewers.
Right. So, Sabelo, the Department of Higher Education and Training released a list of the top 100 scarce skills, and we know that list is always topped by the accountants, the engineers, the health professionals, as well as the architects. What do you believe contributes to this constant scarcity of skills in those areas?
I think, first of all, we just need to understand that the world is changing rapidly. So as the world changes, so many things also change within the labor market. Organizations then look for specific particular skills that are in line with the ongoing changes. So you find that you have to forever constantly have to upskill, reskill, so that we can assume those new roles based on the changes.
And where should we be implementing these changes of upskilling? Is it at the lower education fields, or only when students reach their tertiary levels should we then be starting to introduce them to these changes?
I think we have to start at the basic level, because if you look at a lot of the young people, when we talk to organizations, why are they not employable? They will talk about foundational competencies. If you look at some of the young people, they can read but do not necessarily comprehend what they are reading. And the world of work requires people who will be able to come and read and understand so that they can solve those complex problems. We also talk about numeracy, and all these skills or foundational competencies are built at the basic level. So we have to start from there, primary level, go all the way up to high school, even at tertiary level.
This list also surprisingly has other occupations that don't necessarily require years of study, unlike those that would be getting into engineering and accounting. And these would be your business analysts, your project managers, your software developers. Does this mean that these don't necessarily require a high level of skill and competence?
Not necessarily. But when you look at how the world has changed, I mean, some of the organizations, they even do not actually look at a degree as the minimum entrance requirement, because young people can be developed within the shortest period of time in terms of getting them upskilled, at the same time work, and then they can start earning a living. So back then, yes, you'd go to university and acquire a degree and then go work. But because of the changes in the world of work, we see that some of the skills actually, as young as a matriculant, you can just be trained within the shortest space of time. If you look at skills such as coding and programming, now we talk about them even at, I think, at basic level, high school level. And someone really finishing matric, and they will ask themselves, do I have to go to university and really study for 3 years, or I just go and do a short learning program in a form of a skills course or a learnership or an internship where I can get practical training, at the same time be exposed in the work environment, what we call occupationally directed learning, where you gain the theory, at the same time you get to apply immediately. I think if you look at degrees generally, you go to university for 3 years. By the time you leave university to go and work, chances are you've forgotten what you learned from your first year. 3 years ago. Yet with shorter learning programs, anything from 3 to 12 months, you are able to learn and immediately apply and then start adding value and growing your career. So yes, there are still those, I would say, fields that will require you to go to university. I think those ones, if you look at law, for example, accounting, etc. But other skills, especially in the tech space, are really those ones you can do them within a short space of time. And it's an alternative for young people to actually look at that and consider it instead of going to university.
Most certainly. I mean, we're not discounting, like you're saying, certain careers that do require for you to sit and study for all those years in order for you to attain that skill. How many companies, though, are available in offering jobs in which tech skills are highly required?
Sure. It's a lot of companies, actually, both locally and internationally. I think companies, what they are looking for is someone who can come in and add value. If you look at, if we were just to look at every year, close to 1 million matriculants sit down and write the exams. And of those, I would argue that perhaps just above 10% of them, they can actually qualify to go to university or be accepted. And only to find that maybe half of those can actually be accepted. So a bulk of them are sitting out of the system, and I think we need to start looking or embrace the mind shift to say there is an alternative to going to a university. So I think companies are investing a lot. In our space, for example, we work with a lot of companies who invest in young people in terms of skills and in terms of giving them job opportunities.
That's quite interesting. I mean, what lessons can we as a country take from other countries, of course, which are more developed with regards to creating more highly skilled people in the country? I mean, you've got countries such as Japan, such as Sweden, such as Denmark, that are sitting with high levels of highly skilled people.
I think first of all is the education system. Our education system is very unequal, and I think we need to close that gap as a country, making sure that the public sector system in particular is well resourced from an infrastructure point of view, human resource point of view, but also just look at the curriculum in terms of how do we adapt the curriculum, design a curriculum that is in line with what the labor market. So start from there, and I'm happy to see that, for example, the government or the Department of Education is starting to consider coding at basic level, because if you look at some of those countries, they really start learning those things at basic level. So I think that's the one thing. The second thing really is around the mind shift, not only just the Department of Education, but also I think employers, where they need to understand that there is an alternative in terms of considering young people who come straight from matric and that they can come and work. Because you still find traditional companies, if you look at the job spec, it says, have a degree, have sometimes, they will stipulate the years of experience, but in my view, I think we need to have that mind shift. All of us, the different stakeholders, government, even as parents, I think parents, they like to push
Most certainly.
Their kids to go to university.
Yeah.
And anything other than that, it is looked down upon, inferior. So there is a lot of awareness and education that has to happen across board.
So if that's the case, does one then have to finish matric in order for themselves to equip themselves with such skills? Or can they start as early as grade 10 when they sort of have an idea of where it is and what it is that they want to do post-matric?
I think you can start from there. I can make an example of one boy from Northwest. He's a self-taught machine learning specialist. He has done software development, and he's currently finishing his matric now, and he's ready to go and work. So in terms of the learning and acquiring the skills, you can actually do that as early as primary, high school. Parents, again, they need to be involved in terms of encouraging that culture. But I think the minute you get to matric and graduate from matric, we need to prepare you. It's either you go to university or we upskill you to go to work, right? Which is something that cannot necessarily be done by someone at the lowest level, primary or basic level, yeah.
Right. So we have 755,000 matric learners sitting to write their final matrics this year. And of course, many of them, like you mentioned, might not necessarily have the opportunity to get into a university or a TVET college to upskill themselves. So what advice would you have? Where does one start? Where does one go in ensuring that at least they find a way in which they can upskill themselves with fourth industrial revolution type of skills and get themselves in the workplace?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think the first thing I just want to say is that if you were to look at career initiatives, they always focus on this is the university that you'll go to. These are the careers that are available within these universities. And I think young people have an amazing opportunity to, first of all, I think, understand what you want to study. And then in South Africa, we have what you call SETAs, which they are very specific. For example, we are in the space of technology. There is a SETA that governs that space, which is called MICT. I think we have about 21 SETAs. Go there, look for some of the programs that they offer that they are created with, because that is a starting point to know that, okay, if I'm passionate about technology, then I can go and look at this particular SETA. Then you'll be introduced to a network of other service providers, private providers that offer these particular skills. But I think also just go and do research. There's so much on the internet nowadays in terms of, job opportunities, skills opportunities, learnerships and internships. So that's where they will need to look from, yeah.
And the basic requirements for one to be a part of those internships with the SETAs would be a matric certificate?
Yes, largely a matric certificate, but you know that we also, in that space, we also train people who are working, who previously they were disadvantaged in terms of acquiring an education. So those, through recognition of prior learning as an entrance criteria, they are considered. But for matriculants, we just need you to have matric. And obviously programs are different. Not that all programs you gain automatic entry. Some, for example, if I look at coding and programming, in our case, we administer aptitude tests that can determine if you can actually make a career out of software development. But yeah, different programs have got different entrance requirements, but the basic is that matric certificate.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And certainly good news to know that there's hope for our matriculants when they finish writing at the end of this year, that it's not only universities and TVET colleges that they can reach out to in terms of upskilling themselves and getting those jobs. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's Sabelo Myeni, the Director of Sisekelo Institute of Business and Technology. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Katya, for the opportunity. And just to say all the best to the matriculants that are still writing.
Of course.
And difficult load shedding circumstances.